thrown away by her own people. The sky was dark, and the wind on planet Zarn was cold like ice. In the middle of the storm, an old, broken ship sat in silence, half buried in snow. Inside it, a thin alien woman held her two small children close to her chest. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes full of fear and sadness. Her name was Rena. She had no home, no food, and no hope. Her own people had thrown her away. Rena came from a proud race, but one with cruel rules. In her society, a female had no value unless she bonded with a male and gave him children. But Rena had never bonded. Her children had been born through an ancient genetic spark, a rare natural birth without male seed. Instead of celebrating this miracle, her people called her a curse. They stripped her of rights, took her name from records, and left her to die. For many days, Rena hid in the wrecked ship. Her babies cried from hunger, and she gave them the last drops of water. She tried to catch falling snow and melted in her hands. Her bones hurt from the cold. She whispered stories to her children, but her voice was weak. Still, she never stopped holding them close. Even if the world rejected her, she would never reject them. Then, on the seventh day, something happened. A loud sound shook the ship. The children cried. Rena held her breath and peeked through a crack. A strange vessel was landing nearby. It was not alien, it was human. The engines roared and the lights cut through the snow. She didn't know whether to run or hide, but her body was too weak to move. The human pilot stepped out. He wore a thick coat and a helmet. His name was Jack. He had landed by accident. His ship needed emergency repairs. He didn't expect anyone to be there. As he walked near the wreck, he noticed a soft glow inside. He raised his weapon and approached slowly. The wind howled louder. He pushed open the half-frozen door with effort. Inside, he saw her. Rena stood between him and her children, arms wide. Her body shook, but her eyes were full of fire. Jack paused. He could see she was starving, maybe even dying. She said nothing, only held her ground. Then one of the children, a tiny girl with bright eyes, reached out and softly said a word in broken English. "Papa?" Jack froze. He looked at the little girl. Her voice was not fearful, it was hopeful. He lowered his weapon. "Who are you?" he asked gently. Rena didn't speak. Her lips trembled. She lowered her arms, slowly, carefully. She looked like someone who had stopped expecting kindness. Jack stepped closer and saw the children wrapped in scraps of cloth. They were too thin. Their eyes looked like stars, bright, yet full of pain. "Don't want trouble," Jack said. "I just came to fix my ship." Rena's voice was dry. "We will leave, if you let us live." "Leave? In this cold?" he asked, surprised. She said nothing. Jack noticed she wasn't even wearing shoes. He took off his glove and reached out with one hand. "Come with me. You can't stay here. Your children will freeze." Rena looked at his hand. Her people had beaten her for being different. She had never been offered a hand before, only chains or pain. She hesitated. Jack gently smiled. "I won't hurt you. I promise." Slowly, she placed her hand in his. Jack led her and the children into his ship. He gave them warm blankets, heated food, and fresh water. The children smiled for the first time in days. Rena watched them, her eyes filling with silent tears. Later that night, while the children slept, Rena sat quietly in a corner. "Why were you hiding?" Jack asked. She looked at him. "Because I have no worth." He frowned. "That's not true. In my world, a female must bond with a male. Without him, she is nothing. My children were born without a mate. They said I was broken, cursed, so they threw me away." Jack was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You fed your children with nothing. You protected them with nothing. You survived in the snow with nothing. That is not weakness. That is strength." Rena looked down, trying to hold back her tears. "Your people may call you useless," Jack said. "But I see something else." Rena lifted her eyes, unsure if she could believe him. Jack didn't speak again. He only handed her a fresh blanket and sat beside the children watching them sleep. Outside, the storm was still strong, but inside that ship, for the first time in her life, Rena felt something warm growing inside her heart. It was hope, a deal with danger. The warmth inside Jack's ship felt unreal to Rena. After days of freezing in silence, the quiet hum of the ship, the heat from the walls, and the gentle breathing of her children made her feel like she was in a dream. She stayed awake most of the night, afraid that if she closed her eyes, it would all disappear. Jack, too, didn't sleep much. He watched the sensors, checking the skies outside. His emergency landing had triggered a beacon, one that might call in unwanted attention. Planet Zarn wasn't just cold, it was under strict alien government control. No one was allowed to take in outsiders, especially exiles like Rena. The punishment for helping one was clear: prison or worse. By morning, Jack had made a decision. He would not leave her behind. He didn't care what the rules said, but he was not fast enough. A warning flashed across the ship's screen. A patrol drone was approaching, Zarnian authority class. Jack's heart pounded. They were scanning all nearby ships, and if they found Rena and the children, everything would be over. Jack jumped up and opened the storage hatch. "In here," he said quickly to Rena. "Take the kids and hide, now." She grabbed the children without a word and slipped into the compartment. Jack sealed it, making it look like part of the wall. The space was tight and dark. The baby boy whimpered. Rena held her hand over his mouth, whispering, "Shh, it's just one moment. Be brave." The patrol ship docked. Jack stood near the door, calm but alert. The hatch opened, and two tall Zarnian officers stepped inside. Their skin was silver, and their eyes glowed red with suspicion. "Human," one of them said coldly. "You landed in a restricted zone." Jack nodded casually. "My engine failed. Emergency landing." "Your ship sent out a distress signal," the other one said. "We are here to inspect for illegal activity. Do you have any passengers or items to declare?" Jack shrugged. "Just cargo, fuel cells, tools, food packs, no passengers, I'm alone." The officers moved through the ship, scanning every wall, floor, and locker. One walked right past the hidden compartment. Inside, Rena clutched her children so tightly that her arms went numb. Her body shook with fear. One sneeze, one sound, and it would be over. The officer paused, turned back toward the wall, then turned away again. After a long, silent moment, the inspection ended. "You may leave the planet within 12 hours, the officer said. "Next time, avoid restricted space." "I will," Jack replied. As soon as they left, Jack ran to the compartment and opened it. Rena was crying silently, still holding her babies. Jack reached in and helped her out. "You lied for us," she said softly. "I lied because I had to," he said. "They would have killed you." "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why would you risk everything for someone you don't even know?" Jack looked at the children first, then back at Rena. "Because they're just kids. And you're just a mother trying to keep them alive. That's enough reason." Rena sat down on the bench, stunned. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever chosen her. As the ship lifted off again, Jack turned to her. "Where do you want to go?" She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I can drop you anywhere. Safe colonies, neutral planets. Somewhere your people won't find you." Rena shook her head slowly. "There is no place safe, not for us." Jack didn't respond for a while. He looked out the window as stars stretched before them. "Then stay with me," he finally said. Her eyes widened. "Why would you say that?" Jack replied quietly. "Because maybe you don't need to run anymore. Maybe it's time someone stood still with you." Rena wanted to believe him, but fear still lived in her chest. She had learned never to trust. But Jack's words felt different, honest, heavy, full of meaning. Her children climbed into her lap and curled up, warm and full for the first time in their short lives. For a moment, Rena imagined what life could be like, without hiding, without fear. But she didn't know yet that danger was still close. In the deep black space behind them, a shadow followed, one that had seen everything, one that wanted the children for a dark purpose. The real fight had only just begun. Her painful past. The stars moved quietly outside the window, but inside the ship, Rena's mind was full of storms. Her children slept peacefully, tucked under soft blankets. Jack sat across from her, working on the ship's controls, pretending to focus, but his eyes kept drifting toward her. After some silence, he finally asked, "Rena, who are you really?" She looked down at her hands. They were scarred and thin. Slowly, she began to speak. "You want to know why my own people left me to die?" Jack nodded. "I want to understand." She took a deep breath, her voice steady but soft. "In my world, females are made for one thing, to serve males. We can learn, we can fight, we can build, but it means nothing if we don't bond with a male. A female without a mate is trash to them. Useless." Jack clenched his jaw. "That's sick." Rena looked away. "I tried to follow the rules. I tried to find a male to be what they wanted, but none chose me. My body was different, stronger than most females, bigger. My mind, too curious. They didn't like that. I was told I spoke too much." Jack raised an eyebrow. "So you were punished for thinking?" She gave a bitter laugh. "Yes. And then one day, I woke up pregnant. No male had touched me. The priest called it a defect in my bloodline, a curse. My children were seen as proof that I was unclean." Jack's eyes softened. "But the kids are amazing. They're smart, calm, strong." "Yes," Rena said, her voice proud for a moment. "They're perfect. But that made it worse. They said I must have stolen genetic material from a high-blood male or used black science. They locked me away. I escaped during a storm. That's when I found the broken ship and hid." Jack leaned forward, angry. "So you ran, and they just let you freeze?" She nodded. "Yes, because a female without a male has no protection, no status. I had nothing, not even my name. They erased me from the family record." Jack stood up and began to pace. "That's not how it should be. Where I come from, being a mother it's everything. We honor women who raise children alone. We call them strong." Rena looked at him. "In my world, we call them broken." There was a long silence. Then Jack said, "Well, your world is wrong." She blinked at him, surprised. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry, just firm, steady. He spoke like someone who believed what he said with his whole heart. She whispered, "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Jack replied. "You could have given up, but you didn't. You could have abandoned your kids. You didn't. You fought to keep them alive even when you had nothing. That says more than blood or rules or laws." Rena turned her face away, but a tear still escaped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed. Suddenly, a soft noise broke the silence. The ship beeped. Jack turned to check the monitor. He frowned. "What is it?" Rena asked. Jack didn't answer at first. Then he said, "A shadow in our trail. Something's following us, no ID signal. And it's been there since we left." Rena stood up fast, her heart racing. "My people, they must have tracked me. They won't let the children live." Jack narrowed his eyes. "Then they'll have to get through me first." She grabbed his arm. "No, Jack, you don't understand. They won't attack with weapons. They'll come with lies. They'll say I stole the children, that I used dark science. They'll say I'm dangerous and the galaxy will believe them." Jack looked at her firm. "Then I won't give them the chance. We'll disappear. I know back routes, dead zones, places with no scanners." Rena's voice cracked. "You'd do that? For us?" Jack touched her shoulder gently. "I'm not your people. I don't throw away the good ones. She broke down then. Just for a moment. She had been strong for so long. But in Jack's words, she heard something she hadn't felt in years. Worth, but even as the ship sped through the stars, danger was growing behind them. Because the children were not just special to Rena, they were valuable to forces much greater. Forces that would stop at nothing to take them. And soon, those forces would strike. The children's secret, the stars outside the ship were still. But inside, a storm was coming, one that neither Rena nor Jack could have seen. It began with something small, a moment, a question, and a touch. Jack was running a system check in the cockpit. Rena was sitting nearby, gently feeding her son a nutrient gel while her daughter played with a few wires Jack had given her. They were just colored cables, safe, simple toys. But then something strange happened. The little girl, no more than 4, touched one of the ship's control panels. A low hum filled the room. Jack turned sharply. Lights on his dashboard blinked. Then, changed. New controls appeared. Hidden. Manus unlocked. What in the stars, Jack muttered. He leaned forward. This interface, it's old tech. Buried, military grade. I didn't even know my ship had this. The girl just giggled. Rena stood up, frozen. Jack, take your hands off that panel. Slowly. I didn't touch anything, he whispered. Back. Your daughter did. Rena's eyes widened. She looked at her daughter with a mixture of fear and awe. Then she said something in her own alien tongue, words that Jack didn't understand but felt heavy with meaning. What did you say? He asked. I told her to stop reaching into the ship's mind, Rena whispered. Mind? She interfaces with machines, Rena said quietly. Not like touching buttons. More like she talks to them. Jack stared at the little girl who was now humming and playing with a loose bolt. That's not normal, is it? No, Rena said. It's impossible. Unless what? Unless she carries something rare, something forbidden. Jack looked at the girl, then back at Rena. What do you mean, forbidden, Rena? Sat down slowly, her voice barely a whisper. There was once a bloodline in our race. Long ago. Children born from it had abilities. They could move objects with thought. They could heal wounds, control machines. These were the starborn, but my people feared them, said they were too powerful, so they erased the bloodline, killed every child born with it. Jack's voice was tight. And you think your daughter, your son, they're… Yes, she said. I think they are starborn. Jack rubbed his face. Well, that explains why someone's following us. Rena nodded. If the High Command learns what my children are, they'll send hunters not to study, not to question, but to erase. A sudden alarm blared across the ship. Jack raced to the cockpit. A ship had entered their radar range. Fast, black, silent, no transponder signal. A perfect predator. Rena's voice trembled. That's not one of ours, that's a collector-class ship. Jack cursed. Pirates. Scanners show weapons charging. They're locking on. Before Rena could speak, Jack punched the controls. The ship dove downward, skimming along the edge of an asteroid field. Lasers flashed past them. Rena held her children tight as the ship rattled and shook. Strap in, Jack shouted. But even as he dodged and swerved, the pirate ship kept up. Too fast, Jack muttered. They want us alive. They know we've got something valuable. Rena turned to him. They've heard the stories. They know the Starborn may have returned. Then we can't let them catch us, Jack growled. Suddenly, the little girl crawled onto the seat beside Jack. She placed her tiny hand on the dashboard again. The ship responded instantly. The engines flared brighter. Shields recharged. Secret route through the asteroids lit up on the screen. She's helping, Jack whispered. She's showing us the path. Following the girl's directions, Jack flew the ship through a narrow crack in the rocks. The pirate ship tried to follow, but a massive asteroid clipped its wing. It spun off course and vanished from their radar. Silence. Rena exhaled for the first time in minutes. "You saved us," she whispered to her daughter. The child just smiled and curled up in Rena's lap, already falling asleep. Jack leaned back, staring at the stars. "Your children aren't just special, Rena. They're important. They're dangerous," she said softly. "To the wrong hands." Jack nodded. "Then let's make sure the right hands protect them." Rena looked at him with eyes that were full of fear, but also something more. Trust. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running alone. But the shadow chasing them hadn't truly disappeared. It had only stepped back, waiting, watching. Because now, the hunt wasn't just about a woman and her children. It was about power, ancient power reborn in tiny hands, and the galaxy would come for it soon. Fire and flight. The ship floated silently through a patch of starless space, hidden in a dead zone where no signals could escape. It was the kind of place smugglers used. Dark, cold, forgotten. Jack had chosen it on purpose. After the near miss with the pirate ship, he knew they needed to disappear for a while. But inside the ship, silence didn't bring peace. It brought fear. Rena sat beside the window, staring out at the endless dark. Her son was asleep on her shoulder, and her daughter quietly drew strange patterns on a data pad Jack had given her. The symbols weren't in any known language. Jack had tried to translate them earlier, but the system glitched every time. It was as if the ship itself couldn't understand. Jack stood across the room, his arms crossed, eyes watching the mother and her children. He wanted to say something comforting, something strong. But what do you say to someone whose own kind had tried to erase her? He finally spoke. "We can't stay here long. Supplies are low." Rena didn't turn her head. "They won't stop. The ones who want my children, they'll keep coming." Jack sighed. "Then we stay ahead of them. I've got a few contacts on the edge of Orion space, people who owe me favors. We can lay low there." She turned toward him now, her eyes tired. "Why do you keep helping us?" Jack looked at her for a long moment. "Because you're not just someone who needs help. You're someone who deserves it, and your kids, they didn't ask to be hunted. I've done jobs for profit, for survival, but this is the first time it feels like I'm doing something that matters." Just then the ship's alert lit up, red and loud. Incoming strike. Jack rushed to the controls. "How? We're off the grid." A sharp vibration rocked the ship. They were hit. Rena grabbed her children and ran toward the back chamber. Another hit. Sparks flew. Jack pulled down the defense panel. A tracking pulse. They must have tagged us before the last escape. They found us again. The enemy ship appeared on the scanner, a stealth-class hunter vessel, fast and deadly. It didn't send a signal. It didn't call for surrender. It just opened fire. Jack gritted his teeth and pulled the ship into a hard dive through a field of debris. "Hang on!" Metal screamed. Flames burst from the rear thrusters. Rena shielded the children as the lights flickered. The air became hot and smoky. Then something strange happened. The daughter stood up. "Stay down!" Rena cried. But the child walked to the middle of the room. Her eyes glowed softly, not red, not blue, something ancient. She raised one hand and touched the floor. Suddenly, the ship's systems surged with energy. The fire stopped, the engines restarted, and the shields burst outward. From useless to chosen. The human base was built into the side of a glowing mountain, hidden beneath layers of crystal and steel. The sun on this part of Earth was warm, gentle, and golden, nothing like the cold, cruel world Rena had escaped. As she stepped out of the ship, holding her son in one arm and her daughter walking beside her, a strange feeling rose in her chest. Silence. But not the silence of being ignored or feared. This was the silence of awe. Dozens of human scientists, soldiers, doctors, and diplomats stood quietly watching her. Not with hate, not with judgment, but with deep respect. Behind her, Jack stepped forward, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "You're not just safe now, he said. "You're wanted." Rena didn't know how to reply. She had spent her whole life hiding, being hunted, and hearing whispers that she was wrong. Now, without chains, without shouting, the galaxy listened. A doctor approached and knelt before her daughter. "She's stable now," he said. "She has powerful gifts, but she's still just a child. She needs love, not fear." Rena nodded slowly, still unsure whether to cry or stand tall. Inside the Earth Council Hall, things moved fast. Scientists began studying the children's DNA, not to exploit, but to understand. They found strands older than any known species, with codes that could rebuild damaged organs, cure spaceborne diseases, even reprogram failing machines. What her people had called a curse, humanity now called a gift. When the news reached the stars, the reaction was explosive. Some called her a miracle. Others demanded her return, furious that a rogue female now sat in Earth's most protected place. And some were terrified. They sent messages full of threats. They sent bounty hunters. They even sent a final demand to Earth's council. Surrender the mother and offspring. She is not chosen. She is contaminated. You have 48 hours. Earth didn't reply with words. They replied with ships. 10 massive human warships parked outside the alien sector's border. Their silent presence was louder than any message. Jack watched it unfold and smiled. They won't touch you now. You're under Earth's shield. Rena sat in her new quarters, looking out the window. Her daughter played beside her with floating crystals, making them dance with her mind. Her son slept quietly. A peace she had never dreamed of now surrounded them. Jack brought her a warm drink. They tried to erase you. Instead, they lit up the whole galaxy with your story, Rena whispered. I was told I was trash, that I was useless without a male. Jack replied, You raised 2 children in the snow with nothing but your will. You made them survive. That's not useless. That's a legend. She looked at him. Really looked. You believed in me, she said, before anyone else did. He shrugged. I just saw what they refused to see. Her hand reached out and took his. It was small, unsure, but full of meaning. Jack didn't move, didn't speak, but his eyes said enough. In the coming weeks, Earth offered her citizenship, not as a refugee, but as a protector of the future. Her name was added to the galactic registry as the mother of the first known starborn revival. Her children were listed not as threats, but as heirs to ancient power. Back on her homeworld, leaders panicked. Whispers rose in the shadows. What if others like her exist? What if the truth spreads? But it was already too late. Rena's story flew through the stars, from abandoned to admired, from hunted to honored, from useless to chosen. And at night, when her daughter would rest and her son would dream, Rena would sit quietly, holding the stars in her gaze, and whisper, Thank you, human, for giving my children a future.